Hello fellow Star Wars fans, it's Starrapter here. Welcome back for another episode of This Week in Star Wars Canon. Every week I break it down for you guys, everything new in Star Wars that ties back into the films. This could be anything such as TV series like Rebels or Clone Wars, to the novels, to the comics, and to the video games. This week we have 3 comics. First off, I'm going to start talking about Doctor Aphra number 8. This is the 5th and final part of the Screaming Citadel crossover between Star Wars and Doctor Aphra. It's a very strange arc, and it definitely ends on a very strange note. So first off, we come back to this part where we have Luke and Han, who are both taken over by these symbiote parasites, and they are kind of being commanded around by this queen, and Luke Skywalker isn't going to have any of it. He's basically a dark version of himself, and he is not going to abide by the queen, so he goes into this gridlock where he goes into a alternate realm in his mind, where he is basically fighting the queen through his mind, through the parasites. And we have Doctor Aphra, who has that green crystal that has the presence of this ancient Jedi user named Roar, and that crystal basically melds with Luke Skywalker's mind, and it gives him strength to overcome the queen in this astral plane to take over the queen. And we have Han Solo, who is actually taking control of these units, these troopers of the Queen, and they're battling Sana Starros alongside with Leia and Black Kirstenton, and it is just absolutely bizarre. At one point, when Luke kills the Queen, then there's the chain of command that goes down, 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 and eventually leads to Han Solo being basically the overseer of all these people, and with all that power, he decides that he's going to end up just letting go and everybody will be free. And long story short, Luke Skywalker, their whole mission with Aphra was to get that crystal. He finds out that that guy wasn't even a Jedi to begin with. He basically lets Aphra go with the crystal, and he gets really pissed off at her, and now their relationship is kind of strewn all over the place, and they're kind of rejecting each other. And well, everybody kind of goes their own separate way, and that's pretty much the ending of this thing. Yeah, absolutely bizarre. And the only redeemable thing about this whole comic was basically the thought process behind Luke Skywalker saying, hey, you know, there's never going to be another Jedi to teach me, and I'm going to just have to learn this on my own. I'm not going to be able to get this from any kind of artificial intelligence. He's got old Ben's book, but now he's got the mindset that he's not going to even try scouting out for these people anymore because they just don't really exist. And so that was kind of cool how it changes Luke's character. It seems like he becomes more serious in his endeavors, and he knows that it's going to be a long journey. And then I'm going to just get into the stuff I didn't like, which is pretty much almost everything in this really bizarre comic. So this basically turns into Doctor Strange. As you might have picked up earlier, he goes into another astral plane, and it's just absolutely bizarre. You have all these crazy images of these big symbiotes, parasites fighting each other, and he's just kind of hovering, meditating there along with the Queen, and the visuals of the artist definitely portray this as a out-of-body experience. And for Star Wars, it's just something I have never seen before, and it just seems really, really out of place. Another thing that was kind of crazy was the whole idea of Han becoming a savior of these people. It's going to make his ego even larger than it already is, and now he can say that, oh, I've saved the whole planet of people, and it just doesn't really fit into his character, really, in my eyes. Like, okay, he goes to Empire, he goes to Return of the Jedi. This, to me, was too big of a moment in his life not to affect anything else, so I feel like that was a little bit stretching it for that. And just the whole idea that by the end of this comic, they do tease that apparently the Queen's essence through the parasite gets infected into another being on that planet, and now they want to get Skywalker, basically. So it doesn't look like these parasites are a thing in the past. Now, they will definitely be haunting our friends of the rebellion for a long time here, and I'm not really looking forward to that, because the whole idea of the parasites really bothered me from the first place. Is how you're going to have these parasites that are altering the personalities of our favorite heroes, and they come out of that unscathed, basically. It was just a little bit much for me. My overall thoughts on the Screaming Citadel arc was it did start off very good. If they wanted this to be something that was not done by Star Wars, they accomplished that. It was the gothic horror that they promised, and it just went a little bit too far. I did enjoy things such as Black Kirstenton with the symbiote and going like all Hawk mode and stuff like that. I did like the undead people. Well, they weren't undead, but they were just, you know, parasites on them. That was pretty cool. But this whole last issue and even the issue before this were just a little bit too weird for me. So would I recommend this? Probably not, unless you're like reading every single issue. All in all, this didn't really do it for me as much as Vader Down did it for me. I did enjoy Vader Down as a crossover series a little bit more for this because, well, coming out of this experience, there wasn't a whole lot that really changed our characters' outlooks except, well, maybe Luke in a way. Aphra, not so much. So the next comic I want to talk about is Poe Dameron number 16. This is part 3 of the Legend Lost arc. So last we left off, it's basically speed in Star Wars. You have Poe Dameron and Black Squadron who are put on a mission to get this fuel for the Resistance because it's really hard to come by. However, the First Order have tampered with this fuel ship and have actually emptied a lot of the fuel, and they have put a bomb that's triggered to explode if you go below a certain speed. So Poe Dameron has to maintain the speed. It actually increases speed, and of course they find an asteroid field, so they're navigating through this asteroid field, and that's kind of where this issue picks up from issue number 15. We have Poe Dameron and we have his crew of Black Squadron who go out in the X-Wings that are trying to clear the way for Poe, and eventually they run low on fuel, and the fuel ship's shields start to dimmer, so they get back in there. However, with Poe's skills, they're able to successfully navigate this asteroid field, get out of there, and the only thing that's left on Poe's mind is they have to get that fuel that was stolen back from the First Order. And however, the First Order is actually still in that area of space, so Poe Dameron and his buddies, they go, and there's this great part of this issue which is basically just Black Squadron, you know, outnumbered versus the First Order forces, and they come out on top, and it's a mission accomplished by Poe Dameron and his crew. So things I really enjoyed about this particular issue is just the banter, the teamwork that is constantly being portrayed by these characters in a great fashion, thanks to writer Charles Soule, who does a great job of really, you know, creating that camaraderie between these characters. Also, I love this space combat. It reminded me a lot of Rogue Squadron. It's like, alright, we have these two characters here, Jess Pava and Kari. I think that's how you pronounce her name. They're going to destroy the hyperspace ring while you have Wexley and you have Poe that's taking out the fighter. So there's a lot of this strategy, multiple phase of kind of a fight. It almost felt sort of like a video game too, so I really appreciated that. And finally, it was great visuals to just cap out everything and make it look spectacular. So this is one of the best issues that's come out of the Poe Dameron series so far, and I'm really looking forward to more. And the last thing I want to talk about this week is Droids Unplugged number 1. Now, this isn't anything new. This is just a bunch of reprints that were, you know, at the back of certain issues of the comics. We have, for instance, the Probe Droid little story from the Darth Maul comics. We have the R2-D2 story from Star Wars, and we have the BB-8 story from the Poe Dameron comics. I wish they would have just came out in this form from the get-go as opposed to being tacked on to these great main stories, because that always was a bit of a trick for me. Is like, okay, we have this extra long issue of Poe Dameron, and you realize it's not really any longer than it usually is the main story, because then they just have a couple more pages with these comics, and they're just really different from the normal what you're used to reading. Especially like, it's just, especially there was even a Darth Vader one that came out with Darth Vader, and that really bothered me because the tone was way different. So I mean, I understand they like to have various other, you know, things tacked on, but like, I feel like it was better suited to be in this comic, which is basically a compilation of 3 separate stories. So that is going to do it for another episode of This Week in Star Wars Canon, but now it's time for me to talk to you guys, so feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below about everything from the Screaming Citadel arc. Did you like it? Did you think it was cool for a gothic horror story? How did you like the Poe Dameron space combat in this week's issue? And what did you think about those crazy droids in Droids Unplugged? Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other future content. I also post tons of stuff as far as gaming, movies, TV. I try to basically do a wide range of content, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of it. I'm Starrapter, thank you for watching, and may the force be with you always. So, did you like the video? Then make sure you rate it a thumbs up, and if you did that, go over there, hit that Starrapter head to subscribe to my channel. Doing so will keep you up to speed on all of my latest content, speaking of which you can see a couple of my recent uploads down below. I'm also on social media, so what are you waiting for? Let's start nerding out!